Welcome to The Path Forward, Mental Health with Maps. I'm Dr. Gina Pasquale, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Today's guest is someone whose advocacy and leadership have quietly but powerfully shaped our community, Mayor Jay Kahn of Keene, New Hampshire. Mayor Kahn has been a consistent and compassionate voice for improving access to mental health care and expanding the professional pathways that support the next generation of mental health providers here in our community. But today's conversation is also deeply personal. Mayor Kahn will share reflections on identity, belonging, and the importance of places and spaces and community, all shaped by his own experiences. We'll explore how the places we call home shape our sense of self, and how the communities we are a part of also do that. Let's begin, as we always do, with a moment to ground ourselves. Let's begin. Okay, welcome to the table, Mayor Kahn.
Thank you, Gina.
So the first thing I'm going to have us do is we call this the safe place meditation. This is something that we have clients do at the start of most psychotherapies. The idea is to kind of create an internal vision of a literal physical place. It can be imaginary. It can be an actual place you've been. It can be a quiet corner of your home. It could be a place out in the woods. It could be completely made up and imaginary. But the idea is that we create an inner sense and an inner vision of that place that we can then resource and go back to during times of discomfort. So I'm going to walk us and our listeners through that. And I'm going to read off my paper because, as our listeners already know, I can't memorize anything. So here we are. So thank you for bearing with us. Okay, so I just want to get comfortable in your chair, or if you're listening, please stop driving and get comfortable where you are. And I invite you to bring to mind a place where you feel deeply at ease. This might be a real location, maybe a favorite trail, a childhood kitchen, or a quiet corner of your home. Or it might be imagined, somewhere peaceful, warm, and safe. Bring that image to your mind. Notice the details around you in this place. What do you see? What sounds are in the air? Is there a scent, a texture, a temperature? Who or what is with you, if anyone? Feel the way your body softens when you're here. Feel the steadiness in your breath. This is your safe place, and you can return to it any time. And now gently bring your attention back to this moment, carrying a bit of that sense of safety with you as we begin today's conversation. So again, thank you for being part of our podcast today. Really thrilled to have you here. And we were hoping you'd be able to start by talking a little bit about how community came to be such an important part of your life. So if you could maybe take us back in time to the things that have shaped you.
Sure. So both of my parents are German Jewish immigrants, meaning that they born in the 1920 to 30 period. And so as they were teens, it was flight to safety. Of course, it wasn't by flight. It was how do you get out of Germany as a German Jew in the 1930s as they were teens, or late teens for my dad. That kind of exodus from a homeland where you're under severe conditions without much of a path forward, you're seeking safety. But being without language skills necessarily, and awkwardness of not having the same kind of economic foundation that you might have had in your homeland that you could not carry forward with you to your new land, I think that made them less secure, particularly when they weren't a part of a community that felt familiar. So that's what they looked for, right? Is people of their ilk, with similar backgrounds, immigrants who felt the same kind of persecution and prejudice and insecurity in the new land. So that's not an uncommon American experience, is it? To then seek the comfort of being in a community of similar people, similar backgrounds, and that's what they did
as teenagers. So as teenagers,
I don't know them as teenagers, but my dad became an enlistee in the U.S. Army until the point that his parents in 1941, believe it or not, came from Germany to the United States. It's a very late point in time. My mom's emigration from Germany was in 1940, and that too was because clearly the conflict in Europe was quite underway at that point. So I don't know a lot about that 1940s period, except they were engaged in the war. My dad, though, needed to be the sole provider for his parents and his household. They didn't meet until 1946, so post-war. My mom was selling savings bonds and part of a USO kind of thing that women did. She was a young teen, but anyway, she did that.
So your family legacy, your family on both sides, mom and dad, had to leave Germany, leave their community behind, come to the U.S., and one of the things that helped to help them make it through those experiences was the seeking out of people who could understand what they had been through.
Right.
The reality that this wasn't just for another job opportunity. This was because of severe persecution and fear of death in their own home community.
Yeah, I mean, clearly that's, if you didn't leave, that was what 300,000 Jews in Germany experienced was ultimately they died, were murdered. But they did find people because the other half of the Jewish population in Germany did leave. And that was, you might say, an advantage that German Jews had. They had a 7-year ramping up before flight became less possible from 1933 to 1940 or 41, add on another year or two. So we were in Chicago, and they became affiliated with a Jewish community in the Chicago area. They were largely German speaking, and so the accents that otherwise they were known to have fairly strong, at least my dad, very strong German accent, which wasn't an asset in the United States at that point in time and into my childhood, because as those peers of mine experienced the American experience from the war, anybody who sounded like they were German were, in their sense, an enemy. Did your dad fight on the wrong side? And so I can clearly remember a schoolyard experience. Now, this is not in a German Jewish community. This is in a melting pot of the United States, the lower middle income bracket, which is, kind of the American experience. You're taking steps, and in 1950s they were the step forward was to to move out of the immigrant neighborhood and into the lower middle income neighborhood. But they both worked. So the household was essentially secure. And our place at that point in my early childhood was secure, in that they bought an apartment building. We had tenants in our apartment. We had tenants in my grandmother's apartment. We had tenants in the basement level where there was another apartment. So they made it work. And but the again, I could feel comfort among their German Jewish friends in the synagogue that we were affiliated with. And I could be a wild person when the time came. But in the school environment, it was more hide. Don't be loud. Don't be too expressive. And look out for conflict, because people felt, they were more empowered. People in the school were a little bit more empowered than I was, because of the similarity of their background to several generations of their families being in the United States, as opposed to me being the first generation.
So as a child, you're in this school community where you're just trying to make your way through, but you could feel that there was a little bit of a separation for yourself, and you had to hide a little bit, just be thoughtful about your words and your actions, because you could feel something coming off of those other kids whose families had already been in the U.S. for a few generations.
True. Well, I mean, there was a moment in the schoolyard where several of who I befriended were over at my house, met my parents apparently, and accused me of my dad being a Nazi.
Oh my goodness!
And having
fought
for Germany.
Nothing could have been more untrue. Yeah.
But our broadcasts and our visual images of Germans that were created by public broadcasting, or any kind of broadcast, was that they were the perpetrators of a global conflict, and were now beset by the consequences of their actions, which was a global reaction, and so their reaction wasn't. I just was unprepared for it.
Right.
I mean, and clearly my parents couldn't express that. Look out. Although they did a little bit. I mean, they knew, because they had encountered it. But that's a hard thing to express, right? That when you encounter prejudice.
How did you handle it as a child that age? What did you do?
I just became more cautious, which is where they were too. I just didn't sense it at home, right? Or in the community that we were more socially interacting with.
Yeah. And so what did that teach you about how we build our communities, and how we exclude and include people, and how we can create places where people don't have a feeling where they have to be careful and hide and duck and cover?
I think my first experience with that was I was part of a Jewish community center. So this now is... I'm in the second neighborhood that I grew up in, which was now much more middle class and upper middle class. We didn't fit there. So economically, we were misfits. But by background, we fit in better, because there were the Jewish population now in the suburban community was larger. And he didn't need to be so awkward and cautious about my expressions. So in this Jewish community center, which was a melting pot of people from a variety of different communities, there was a friendship core. And the idea of the friendship core was that you would be part of an outreach to other immigrant communities in the Chicago metropolitan area. And so it was a conscious thought of the leaders of this that, okay, you kids who are gravitating towards a community of likes and similarities, interact with those who you don't resemble and that are dissimilar from you. And that was engaging. I could see that I wanted to reach out. And because Chicago is a melting pot just of lots of people, very varied groups. In fact, when I was back in the Chicago area in that first neighborhood, one of my favorite people was a Japanese family. And we would hang out after school at his family's restaurant, eat ice cream, drink milkshakes. But I felt really comfortable with James Yamaguchi. And maybe I didn't realize it. He just looked different. But maybe we had similar backgrounds, just we were coming from different places.
Right. And the getting to know each other and connecting with each other felt comfortable and natural, and you had wonderful, it sounds like really fun childhood experiences together because of that engagement.
That worked well. But again, I wasn't sensing it.
Well, one of the things we do know that all the research has supported around how you build empathy and compassion between disparate groups is by getting to know each other, by spending time together. That having that personal human connection helps reveal that, yes, we all have there's different oppressions in different groups' lives. And it demystifies some of that propaganda that we might hear and the messaging that we might hear that leads to discrimination.
Yeah. I actually have grown into seeking out that discomfort.
Tell me more about that.
By the time I was a college student, I had worked on the south side of Chicago. It's a very Black American experience in that area. It was in a cousin's place of business. But in the south suburbs, around White Sox Stadium, Comiskey Park, as it was called at the time, and I wanted that experience. And again, it was seeking out being part in having a social interaction with Black Americans, and which was pretty palpitating in that period of time, 1960s, civil rights
era,
the kind of urban oppression that was being fought against, right? It wasn't limited to southern places. It was apparent in the segregation that existed in the large cities. So that was an experience. When I went to college, I thought at Northern Illinois University, so public schools, were really all the family could afford. In fact, I put myself through college. The residential experience was not something that my parents wanted their firstborn to have. I was supposed to go to the city college, and but that was one of the acts of independence. Well, okay, I'll pay for myself and I'll do this, and it helped the family too. It wasn't just a revolting kind of, I'm going to do this myself. But, and so I saw it, I thought I could re-establish that kind of relationship with in a community at the college, Northern Illinois, that I could be part or partner with a Black American. And I did have a Black American roommate. And it went very poorly, as it did for another student on the floor, and a white student with a Black roommate. And so eventually we wound up exchanging roommates. But so that didn't go so well. But where my experience with my roommate broke down, James Reed, was around his Malcolm X-like identity. And it was that the separateness is something that that philosophy was promoting, that there couldn't be an integration of the races in the United States. So let's accept that and strengthen the races independently. And that's what my roommate was seeking. And we had that conflict. We openly discussed it. And it was clear this community that he was seeking was not one that he just was not seeking a relationship with a white student who identified more with white students, which was not unusual. But I was seeking out those cross-cultural experiences as well when I was at college.
Yeah, and I don't want to project onto his experience at all. And as a white woman, I have no business doing so. What I do want to speak to is that when oppression has been as substantial as it was for Black Americans, there was a period of time where just to even claim identity. And I think the feminist movement did this as well, just to claim identity. There was a sense of we need to build something before anyone else puts their hands anywhere near what we're trying to protect. And yeah, you can see where there's a lot to be navigated. What I'm noticing, though, is that the two of you had an open conversation about it. And so even if you couldn't come to a resolution that worked, to be able to continue cohabitating, you had open discussions about it, which helped to shape you, and it probably shaped him a little as well. And, and I think that's, I always feel most concerned when I hear that people are just shutting each other off. Because I think the conversations that need to happen to understand folks who've had vastly different experiences than we've had, so we have to have that level of engagement to begin to understand what we don't know yet, that we don't know what we don't know. I think it's really remarkable, though. So your life, you lean into these difficult conversations, you lean into engagement, you do that through your college years. And then how did that, beyond the college experience, the leaning into trying to create community, trying to connect with people, what happened next beyond the college years?
Yeah. Well, I became, I guess you'd say, politically active. It was an easy time to become engaged in government and the role of government, and because it was the Vietnam conflict, and our college campuses were vibrating with the role that students needed to evoke, and we thought that we could be agents for change. In my sophomore year, I became a leader of a group called the Movement for New Congress. And it was work within the system in order to create change. But we were thinking, we might really create change. And so the elections of 1970 were something that we became involved in. and the group which had legs in all of the Illinois campuses and perhaps nationally. I can't really recall this. Wound up working for Adlai Stevenson III as a U.S. Senate candidate. Now, that was not exactly outside the mainstream. His father had run for president twice in the 1950s and 60s, and but it gave me that initial leg into. I was part of our college assembly, student assembly. Became the vice president of the student body of 22,000 students, and became very engaged in the college community. It was very supportive for me. And I can't explain how those pieces fit together, but I began to see how I could navigate myself through college administration and work with it to create change. One of the things that I initiated was a contract major, meaning in a college of 22,000, believe it or not, there were some majors that they didn't offer that students wanted, like environmental studies, even in 1970s, but Earth Day was coming, and we were, so it was foundational, and it's always a great idea to allow students to find their own pathway through a system, and that's what I proposed. It wasn't totally my thought. I was seeing that other college campuses were doing this, and I was wondering, why can't mine? And so I proposed that. It led me to becoming part of the Illinois Board of Higher Education Student Advisory Committee, where I became vice chair as well. And now I'm interacting with students from all the Illinois public institutions, and they consolidate their offices from Chicago and Springfield into Springfield, and they lose their graduate assistants, or the younger research associates, you might say, from the Chicago area, and now they need to hire full-time and get them in Springfield, Illinois. Well, it's perfect time. I was graduating. I was actually in graduate school at Northern Illinois, and my wife and we got married. I had a friend who was working in the governor's office. He set her up with an interview. We wound up in Springfield, Illinois, and me with a job with the Illinois Board of Higher Education, the first board of higher education in the nation among the 50 states. And so it was a test pit for higher education coordination, meaning community college, the different levels, community college, four-year degree, doctoral research institutions, as well as public and private. And so what a great big state, a test pit for national and interstate collaborations for higher education institutions and for policy. So it was a transfer station, essentially, once you had this very enriching experience there, where I was mentored by some great people, and they wound up being leaders in higher education in states across the country. And my next station became Governor State University. So after 5 years with the Illinois Board, now I'm in a south suburb of Chicago at the last public institution created, higher education degree granting institution, the last public one created in Illinois. And it was founded in 1969, and I'm joining it in 1978. And so the transition here is that a campus growing up in 1969 into the early 70s has a very California-like experience. Meaning it's trying out new things that maybe didn't work so well, and maybe no grades and competency-based, which is where
we're
a
going
lot
at
of
the
things
moment.
went. But it was just way before its time, and so it had a little trouble getting off the ground and competing with the 22,000 or 40,000 student campuses that were growing at that time. And so I came in with the second administration. They needed somebody who could navigate the higher education system in Illinois for that campus, and so I became the director of budget and planning. Eventually an associate vice president, got my doctorate degree at the University of Illinois in Chicago, and now I could do incredible things at that campus. I mean, just the administration there just helped me create a budget of $40 million. At that time, that was a significant amount of money.
Yeah, something I'm wondering about, something that keeps percolating in my brain is historically, when we look at the legacies of families, you come from a place where your parents, they did not have an option. There was no working within the system in Germany at that time. If you were a German Jew, there was no working within the system. They had to go. And you then became an individual here in the United States where you have intentionally, throughout your life, worked within the system to change the system. How did that come to be? How did that happen? Like, what is it about you?
Yeah, it's a great question.
It's a psychologist-y question.
Yeah, because this whole interview is. How did that happen? Because working within the system can become monotonous if you just become a captive of the system. So I always put myself out there to not just fit in, but to try to see where I can be an agent of change. Where's that point of leverage that I can move to and be that person.
And I think you definitely, you embody that, Mayor Kahn. You and I first met, and I don't even know if you remember this, but you and I first met probably about 14 or 15 years ago. We met in the office of Dr. Gary Barnes, the executive director of MAPS at that time. And you were there as a politician, us as your constituents, and you wanted to sit with us and understand what our needs were within the mental health system. And my sense of you that day, and I was fired up, as I usually am about most things, but my sense of you that day is you were not listening just to appease us, that you were trying to find that leverage point. You were trying to find where is the piece in this that we could make some movement forward. And you didn't give us any false promises. But what I know from then watching what happened in the years following that is some of the initiatives we were really hoping for, slowly but surely, came to fruition. And that's really powerful. And now here in our community, and you haven't stopped, and that's fascinating to me too. So you completed one role, and now here you are, the mayor of Keene. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, after 43 years as a college administrator, because I just kept on that path, right? Well, at first there's an interesting connection.
Please share.
Because how did I get to New Hampshire? And as I said, most of the people who were part of that Illinois Board of Higher Education in the early 70s, by we wound up in responsible positions across the country. Me in New Hampshire, as they said to me, you could be a big fish in a small pond, and in fact, that's what New Hampshire became. I mean, the state of New Hampshire has the population of a county in Illinois, and so it actually functions that way because people who are maybe 2 hours away, but in a different county, but the size of a county, and you get to know people in those other counties, and now you have a network. You know, oh, I know, you just the network in New Hampshire, while distant and a little more spread out and disparate, is very integrated.
Yeah, very connected.
But my age discrimination experience was turning 36, having my doctorate, being an associate vice president at this institution that was now 20 years old and not the fledgling institution that I joined at Governor State University in Illinois in the south suburbs. I sought to become a vice president. That was a level of professional achievement that I felt prepared and ready to do. And I was the recommended candidate for a job as a vice president in another campus in my governing system, and I didn't get the job. And the way I perceived it, perhaps I was not counseled well as to how I might otherwise perceive it. My perception was that the same people who were running higher education when I was 23 and joining the Illinois Board of Higher Education staff were still the same patriarchal leaders that had mentored me as a 23-year-old or 28-year-old, and that if I really wanted to spread my wings, I needed to move.
Okay.
And so my opportunity to become a vice president was either going to happen in Flint, Michigan, or in Keene, New Hampshire. Keene, New Hampshire presented a much more desirable place to be at that time, and I could see a campus that had the attributes of a private higher education school, but had a public mission to try to attract first-generation college students, not first-generation Americans, but students who did not come from steeped multi-generational economic security, but people who, and that's what Keene State College is known to do, is to try to lift people into spaces that their parents and their family background had not previously had access to. Now I'm in New Hampshire, and I'm spending 28 years at Keene State College with very varied experiences, and in fact, a year of being the interim president at Keene State College. And so my interactions with the students throughout the whole period of time, all 28 years, was one that I sought out. I just didn't see myself just as an administrator. And I taught as an adjunct as well when I could. All right, so at the end of 28 years, what do you do? Or at the end of 43 years in the industry, what do you do? And but people had seen me as the college president, and so this transition, I'll give some insight into that transition, because I worked my way into it by having like a dozen things that I'm going to spend some time on this and on that. And after about 6 months, of doing that, I had pretty well knocked off most
All
of those things.
things.
And so something that I had said no to, which was running to be a candidate for the state Senate position that was vacating in our district, I said, why not? And the lesson that I took from this was one about community engagement. I gotta back up there too. Something about Keene, New Hampshire that was so embracing. Of course, I had a position. I was not a person without a position. So coming to Keene State, vice president of the state college, one of the great economic engines of our region, and so I had access to board positions and community responsibilities. I think within 5 or 6. In any case, I became a liaison to various important community groups. I wound up chairing the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Corporation, and then the hospital board. So those were the side experiences. That was my community engagement. How do I learn about my community? And it was through that community liaison role that I was playing for the college, of being more engaged in my community. And what I took from that, and what I've said to students since then, is find a way to say yes.
Find a way to say yes.
It's probably one of the great takeaways from Keene, New Hampshire, that I have. But there are other experiences too before I find a way to say yes, because it's so easy to say no, and not engage, and then you begin to withdraw.
And it sounds like every time you have said yes, another opportunity, more engagement, more connection, more engagement. It seems to have this beautiful snowball effect.
Absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
What I think is also, and I think probably many people in our community are not aware that you've done this, is that in now hearing your whole story, and I didn't quite realize how engaged you had been within the educational environment. And knowing that now, it makes complete sense to me how, as you stepped into the mayor role, that one of the things you've done that, again, I don't think most people are aware of, is you created a youth council. That you saw that in order to help these children be engaged in their community, understand their community, and have a voice. You recognize that they do not have voting power, but that they deserve a voice. You created a youth council, and that youth council has grown. And so the high school students here in Keene, New Hampshire have a meaningful voice. And I can say as a parent of one of those kids, it's not just some pretty wrapping paper on an initiative to say, oh yes, we created a youth council. Those kids really do feel like what they have to say about their community matters. You've brought, outside guest speakers in, people from the planning board to hear the kids' ideas, and to also then give them an opportunity for community engagement. And I'm so curious to see what the ripple effect will be in our community for that, because you created that.
By the time you're 16 years old, you're a more informed citizen than many adults.
Absolutely.
And I actually think that's a challenge for us to try to confront. Do we give voting rights to 16-year-olds as opposed to 18-year-olds? Leaving that policy decision for another day. The least that we can do is create a platform for our youth to want to be more engaged in the civics of their community. I actually am on the New Hampshire Civics board, and so I get to talk about the policy aspects of that on a statewide basis, but through my mayor's role, I can actually act on it and try to be more creative.
So what do you think thinking of us here in Keene, New Hampshire, this absolutely, beautiful place in the world, based on everything you've learned throughout your life, everything you've gleaned, what can we do as a community to help people feel like they are part of this community, to help people feel like they do not need to hide? What do we need to do to make sure that voices are heard, and to help to make sure, because we feel a sense of community here, but I imagine there are people in our community who do not feel a sense of community here and are having a different experience. What can we do from your perspective?
I've waded into the needs of the LGBTQIA2 plus community here in Keene, recognizing that this is a potential time of conflict for them, that the political tides have just shifted very quickly, and the sand is being pulled out from underneath their foundation. And you see it in gender-affirming care being pulled from Medicaid reimbursement status, prohibiting gender-affirming care by age, forcing people who are questioning their sexual orientation or gender identity from seeking the kind of biological blockers and that allow them to continue to explore their identities. The book bans that are being discussed, I have the right to pull my student out of a class that's maybe talking about your experience, and so that my kid doesn't get influenced by you and people like you, or stories about people like you. I think that's pretty isolating. So I think that these political waves are causing people to feel prejudice, and it's something that this state of New Hampshire cannot afford. People who struggle with sexual identity and orientation we need people like that. We can't just say and create a hostile environment, and that's what I think they may be experiencing. So I want to create a safe community for an LGBTQIA2 plus population.
And here at MAPS, we're thrilled about that, because the best practices of our profession, the American Psychological Association, social workers, MFTs, marriage and family folks, all of us, it is the best practices of our profession to support gender-affirming care and to support and to recognize the full range of human experience with sexual development, that we have known as a truth, not an opinion. It is a scientific fact. And so for us, we deal with the after effects, the ramifications of the loneliness, the discrimination, the mental health impact of that, and the reality that that group of individuals has a much higher suicide rate. And that I can feel my blood boiling right now. That is profound. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Yeah. Yes, I was with Mom this week, trying to learn more about her experience with her son, who has transitioned. It's not an experience I've had. Mm-hmm. So you need to understand that these are people make their way through those experiences. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to end with someone seeking to end their life or feeling like they can't make it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you just hit on something really important that we can do as a community. You just said you've not had that experience. And so what you chose to do instead is to find out and to listen, to not make assumptions, but to listen and learn about what that experience is. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see what systematic things exist in our community that maybe we can mitigate.
And this is what I mean when I say that you always are looking for that leverage point. How can I do something about it? You turn those feelings into a sense of purpose and a sense of engagement. And I think that also is a beautiful way all of us can protect our own mental health, is to maybe adopt a little bit of that. Always asking ourselves, what can I do? What is within my realm of possible control? What can I attempt? How do you hold on to the hopefulness of that belief that, because with that stance of I will find leverage is a deep well of hope that things are possible. So how do you sustain that?
Yeah, well, let me balance that with where my psychological checking has landed most recently is I think I've been expressing a little bit of impatience. And that becomes a barrier to success. And so that's my check-in.
Okay.
I can't do that. It undermines my effectiveness. So
it creates a barrier to that deep listening and understanding and being with.
And the empathy.
And the empathy,
people are going to be resistant to change.
Right.
And when you begin to express impatience, you are not creating common ground.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important for all of us to keep in mind. On regardless of how people perceive different conflicts and situations, you're right. The path through those has never been just to push harder. It doesn't ever seem to end well when we all push harder. So I love that idea of
it's hard to avoid.
Yeah. But I think you used the word check, a psychological check. And I think that's the thing, is if we all take some responsibility for our own emotional reactions, we check ourselves, we see what we're contributing to the situation, what we're contributing to the communication, to do so more effectively, that is impactful. That does lead to greater empathy and greater understanding of other people. And then hopefully we come up with solutions that are a better fit for all, not just a compromise where everyone's a little unhappy, but an actual true new solution that folks can get on board with.
Yes.
I love that.
And maybe they can come up with that
solution. And maybe they can come up with that. Exactly.
Indeed.
Thank you for sharing all you have shared with us today. The way we wrap up each episode is we have something we call trail mix. It's a little something for our listeners to take on the road with them as they keep moving forward. And what I wanted to do is return to that safe place meditation, visualization we did at the very beginning, because that is one of the pathways also to having greater patience and to being able to check ourselves, is take a breath and to just bring up that visualization that we had, what our imagery is of our safe place. Would you feel comfortable sharing what your safe place is?
There were several. You said the woods, and I have enjoyed over this last month the lumberjacking in my yard. The woods behind my house. But I've also, I went to the lake and I was visualizing the lake and blueberry picking and swimming out to a boulder and blue sky and the waves not being so choppy. I was actually looking at the choppy waves.
Interesting that that's
which was not necessarily. I mean, in any case, I enjoy that 75-yard swim out to the boulder and back and boulder and back and the waves disrupt it. But it's something to is another little problem to
And
navigate.
and it keeps you in the moment. It keeps you mindfully in the moment.
Most often.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. And so that's what I encourage our listeners to do is to use that safe place. And it can be like Mayor Kahn, it could be a variety of places where you feel safe, at ease, grounded, that as emotions arise, just taking a breath, grabbing that in your mind, that can be a really powerful tool to help us have a little more patience. So I'm going to say goodbye to our listeners. So as always, thank you for listening today, and please take good care of yourself and each other. And wherever you are on your path, we are honored to walk alongside you.